Have you ever met someone who just has to win every conversation? They interrupt others, they always have to be right, and they need to have the last word. And in your head, you just wonder, why is this tiny thing so important to them? But here's a truth most people don't want to admit. Sometimes we're that person too. Not because we're arrogant, but because we're scared. Scared of being ignored, scared of being forgotten, scared that if we stay quiet, no one will see our value. So we put on the mask of confidence, even though deep down, we're shaking with fear. I once worked with someone like that. He was smart, charming, great at talking, but every meeting felt like a battlefield. Someone shared an idea, he shot it down. Someone succeeded, he found a flaw. One day I asked him, "Don't you ever get tired of fighting all the time?" He paused for a few seconds, then smiled and said, "Maybe, but I don't know how to stop." That line stayed with me for a long time, because sometimes the ego isn't pride, it's exhaustion. Exhaustion from always trying to prove you're enough, from doing everything just to not feel small in front of others. And when you start seeing the ego that way, not as a monster to destroy, but as a mask trying to hide fear, something changes. You stop reacting to loud people, you start seeing the insecurity behind their overconfidence, and slowly you realize this. The calmest person in the room isn't weak, they're just done trying to prove themselves. This video doesn't teach you how to crush anyone. It teaches you how to see through the ego in others and in yourself. Because once you understand it, you're no longer controlled by attention, by praise, or by the fear of being looked down on. So take a deep breath. Let go of the noise around you. This video isn't about being cold, it's about staying still in the middle of chaos. We'll start from where every battle begins, the silent war between egos. Part 1. The mirror test. Seeing the ego in others and in yourself. There's something interesting about the ego that most people don't notice. It doesn't only show up in the loud and proud ones. It also lives inside those who keep saying, "I'm nothing." One day, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop. Next to me were two friends talking. The first one couldn't stop talking about his achievements, how his boss praised him, how he led a big project. The other one stayed quiet, just smiled weakly and said softly, "Yeah, I could never be like you." At first glance, you'd think the first guy has the big ego, but in truth, both of them are fighting the same battle, just with different weapons. One uses showing off to get approval, the other uses self-pity to get sympathy. But deep down, both are saying the same thing. Please see me. I just want to be noticed, to be heard, to matter. The ego comes in many forms. Some people show it through the spotlight, always needing to be the center of attention. Some hide it behind fake modesty, always putting themselves down, hoping someone will lift them up. And some use logic, knowledge, or morality to cover their fear of not being good enough. If you pay attention, you'll see three common types of ego around you. The performer, they need praise and attention. They live on other people's approval. The victim, they always feel left out, and they use their pain to hold on to attention. The know-it-all, they use knowledge to dominate others, but deep down, they're scared of being seen as not smart enough. And the most interesting part is, all three types exist inside us. The ego isn't just someone else. It's our own defense mechanism. Next time someone annoys you, pause for a moment and ask yourself, why does this person trigger me so much? Sometimes it's because they're touching a part of you that you haven't faced yet. I remember once, in a meeting, my boss pointed out my mistake in front of everyone. I didn't hear the feedback. I only heard the humiliation. That night, I kept thinking, am I mad because they were wrong? Or because they were right and I didn't want to hear it? Then I realized my ego was scared. Scared of being seen as imperfect. Our biggest mistake is thinking we don't have an ego. Because the moment you say, "I don't have an ego," your ego smiles and puts on a new disguise. It's sneaky enough to hide even inside humble or noble actions. That's why the first step to understanding others isn't reading them, it's facing yourself. The mirror never lies. When you're brave enough to really look into it, you'll see not just your face, but also your fears, your needs, and your wounds that haven't healed yet. Only when you accept that can you look at others without judgment, without reaction, only with understanding. And when you understand, you start taking back control of yourself. But understanding the ego is only the beginning. To stay calm in front of it, you need a strong life philosophy, something that makes you feel powerful without having to win. And that's what we'll explore in the next part, the philosophy of strength, when calm becomes power. Part 2, the philosophy of strength, the Stoics, and the art of calm. Have you ever wondered why some people don't need to say a word, yet everyone can feel their quiet but powerful energy? They don't need to raise their voice. They don't need to prove anything. And because they don't need it, they already have it all. When I was younger, I used to think strength meant dominance, that you had to win every argument. I admired people who were sharp, quick, and could shut others down with words. But the older I got, the more I realized the real winner isn't the one who talks the most, but the one who stays unshaken. The philosopher Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster." It sounds philosophical, but it's actually very practical. Every time we react just to prove ourselves right, we hand control over to our ego. And the harder we try to win against others, the more we lose our inner peace. That's also what the Stoics taught more than 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled an entire empire, once wrote in Meditations, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." While the world celebrated power and loud voices, he chose silence, awareness, and calm action. If Nietzsche taught us to rise above the ego, the Stoics taught us to master our reactions. The difference between the strong and the weak isn't in the volume of their voice, it's in the stillness of their mind. Picture someone standing in the middle of a storm. Everything around them is chaos, but their eyes stay calm like the surface of a lake. That's not coldness, that's power. The kind that comes from no longer letting other people's emotions control you. In Western culture, strength is often linked to control, controlling others. But in Eastern philosophy, especially from Lao Tzu, strength comes from letting go, from controlling yourself. Water is soft, yet it can cut through rock. That simple idea is the base of all lasting power. Because water doesn't fight the rock, it just keeps flowing. And in the end, it wins through softness. When you understand this, you start to see the world differently. Loud people don't scare you anymore. Those who always need to be right don't bother you anymore. Because now, you know, calmness is the highest form of energy. True strength isn't loud. It's in a peaceful gaze, in silence with intention, and in the ability to stop proving yourself to anyone. But calmness isn't just a philosophy, it's also a powerful psychological strategy, a way to make someone's ego collapse on its own without lifting a finger. In the next part, we'll explore 3 psychological techniques that can reveal any ego, and more importantly, help you become immune to manipulation. Part 3. 3 psychological tactics to disarm the ego without fighting. If the last part taught you that calmness is strength, then this part will show you how to use that calmness as a weapon. Because sometimes you don't need to argue to make someone's true self appear. You just need to understand them better than they understand themselves. Tactic 1. Intentional indifference. Silence is the strongest comeback. I once saw an argument at work. 2 coworkers were fighting over who contributed more to a project. One of them kept talking louder and louder, listing every single thing he did. The other just sat quietly, smiled, nodded, and said one short line, "Yeah, that makes sense," then stayed silent. Guess what happened? The first guy got more and more confused. The more he talked, the more insecure he looked, because the ego survives on reaction. When you stop reacting, it starts to die. But indifference doesn't mean coldness. Intentional indifference means you see everything, you understand everything, but you don't let it pull you in. Most people use silence as punishment, and that's not calmness, that's manipulation. And that, again, is just another form of ego, only smarter. Next time someone tries to provoke you, just smile, breathe, and remember, silence isn't weakness, it's freedom. Tactic 2, the unanswerable question. Some people always say, "I don't need anyone," but the moment they're challenged, they explode. The ego hates contradiction because it survives on the illusion of perfection. Next time someone acts like they know everything, ask softly, "If you're so sure, then why aren't the results what you wanted?" Or when someone keeps saying, "I don't care," ask, "Then why are you talking about it so much?" These questions aren't meant to attack. They're mirrors, reflecting the contradiction inside them. And once that mirror is held up, the ego cracks on its own. But never ask in a mocking tone or try to embarrass the other person. That's the fastest way to become like them. The right question isn't meant to win, it's meant to awaken. And sometimes awakening is the ego's biggest defeat. Tactic 3, compliment the wound. This is the most subtle and hardest tactic to use. I remember once at a party, a man kept bragging about how confident he was speaking in front of crowds. Instead of arguing, my friend just smiled and said, "Wow, that's impressive. If I were as tense as you, I'd never dare to speak in front of anyone." The whole table laughed, and the man went silent. That's the power of the reverse compliment. It doesn't insult, but it makes them question themselves. Wait, were they complimenting me? Or did they just see what I'm trying to hide? But never use compliments as weapons to humiliate people. That's not intelligence. That's cruelty. The right compliment is gentle, like a breeze, but it can shake the entire mask the ego built. These three aren't for defeating others. They're for freeing yourself from their control. When you're calm enough to stop playing the game, every ego around you loses its power. Because low energy can't survive in high stillness. But be careful. Once you get good at reading people and rising above them, your own ego can sneak back, this time disguised as wisdom, calmness, or pride. The next part will explore the dark side of destroying the ego and why so many people think they're enlightened, when in truth, it's still their ego leading the way in a new form. Part 4. When you become what you once hated. Have you ever felt proud that no one can hurt you anymore? Proud that you've learned how to stay silent, calm, and unbothered? And then, one day, you look back and realize you don't feel anything anymore. You've lost your warmth, your connection. All that's left is a perfect shell called peace. I've been there too. After reading every self-help book I could find, I thought I was enlightened. I didn't argue, I didn't react, I didn't get angry, but deep down, I still wanted people to notice how well I was controlling myself. I wanted them to admire my calmness. I wanted to be seen as someone who had risen above it all. Until one day, a close friend said to me, "You're calm, yeah, but you're not warm anymore." That line hit me hard. I realized my ego was still there. It just changed clothes. From arrogance to enlightenment. That's the most dangerous trap. When you start feeling proud for having no ego, that very pride is the ego, stronger than ever. The ego is smart. It can hide behind humility, kindness, even spiritual awareness. It makes you believe you're above others, when in truth, you're just standing on a different pedestal of comparison. Many people, after learning emotional control, accidentally use it to disconnect. They stop arguing, but they also stop being genuine. They stop getting angry, but they also stop feeling joy. And slowly, they lose the most important thing, human connection. The goal isn't to make the ego disappear, but to make peace with it. Learn to listen when it shows up, and gently say, "I see you, but I'm the one driving now." The ego isn't your enemy. It's just the scared child inside you, wanting to be seen and accepted. And when you understand it, you don't need to win anymore because you've already made peace with yourself. That's the final step, not to destroy the ego, but to build a healthy one that serves you, not controls you. Now, let's turn the ego into an ally so it's no longer a burden, but a force that helps you live deeply, honestly, and peacefully. Final part, mastering the ego. Have you noticed that the older we get, the harder it is to truly feel at peace with ourselves? We might be strong at work, confident in society, but deep inside, there's still that small voice whispering, "Am I really good enough?" That's the voice of the ego, both our friend and our inner gatekeeper. One afternoon, I sat in a park watching a little kid building a sandcastle. The wind blew hard. Every time the castle was done, the waves knocked it down. At first, the kid got angry, shouting, hitting the sand. But after a few tries, the kid started smiling, realizing that the castle didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be rebuilt, better each time. And I realized we're the same. Every time the ego collapses, it's not the end. It's a chance to rebuild it, wiser than before. Mastering the ego isn't about destroying it, it's about training it. Like taming a wild horse, it's still powerful, still free, but now it runs in the direction of awareness. 3 steps to turn the ego into strength. Step 1, awareness. When you feel the urge to prove yourself or to win, pause. Take a deep breath and ask, what am I trying to protect right now? The moment you ask that question, the ego already loses half its power. Step 2, stop reacting, not by staying silent to avoid things, but to choose your response with intention. Every second you stay calm, you take back control of your mind. Step 3, redirect. Instead of using your energy to win against others, use it to grow yourself. When you focus on your own path, the battles around you slowly disappear. The biggest lesson is this: the ego isn't the enemy. It's the part of you learning how to love yourself the right way. When you understand it, you'll know when to let go and when to stand your ground. And when that happens, you stop being easily hurt because you no longer need anyone else to define you. True strength isn't about making others smaller. It's the ability to stand still in the storm and still see everything with gentle eyes. Because in the end, the one who no longer needs to win is the one who already has. This week, try something simple. When someone annoys you, don't react right away. Just smile and say quietly to yourself, "I see my ego." You'll be surprised how, in that small moment, you become the freest person in the room. If you've ever had a moment where you saw your own ego, share it in the comments. I'll pick one story that truly touches me and share it in the next video. Because maybe real strength isn't about being better than others, it's about finding peace in a world that never stops comparing. The strongest person isn't the one who silences the world, but the one who stays peaceful when the world gets too loud.